Start recording. Oh shoot. Didn't get to the intro. Hey guys, welcome to the first ever episode of PG Comics. I'm Mark Bridge, and I'm here with Zach Wojner.
That's me.
So, we took a little, well, I did, take a little break from playing my third playthrough of Final Fantasy
Ooh.
7 Remake. I'm playing on hard mode to, read some comic books, check out some comics, see what's going on in the world of comics. Well, we're not actually reading up-to-date stuff. We're going back. I'm going back for the second time. Well, at least for the first half of Scott Snyder's run on Batman. Like, I've read it before, but I never read the complete run, and I figured I could make it interesting and actually do a little show about his actual run. So we're covering the first 6 issues, and Zach, it's actually your first time reading some Scott Snyder Batman?
It's my first time reading any Batman that's not written by Frank Miller, actually.
Oh, interesting.
The only things that I've read that have had Batman that aren't Frank Miller have been like cameos here and there.
Gotcha.
Like I'm not as versed in comics as you are. I've got all of who's my guy? Garth Ennis. I got all of his Punisher comics.
Right.
And I've got, Watchmen, and I've got... that's pretty much all the comics that I own.
Right.
But I just got into... and there's a few others. Like, I read Next Wave, which was really fun. And some other stuff here and there. But I just recently got a subscription to... DC Universe. And in addition to watching stuff like The Flash and Birds of Prey, which I always wanted to catch up on, I'm taking the opportunity to read comics.
Right.
I also recently got an iPad, kind of inexplicably in a press kit, and I was like, whoa, shoot, is that for me?
An iPad? Word? Oh, nice.
Yeah, I mean... It's got the logo of the mobile game company on top of the Apple logo, but whatever. Yeah. I can scratch that off if I really wanted to. But so and in quarantine, it's kind of like I wake up, I do all my work, then I play video games, and then I go sit in bed and read some comics until it's time to go to sleep. So I'm really, especially for someone who hasn't read a whole lot of DC anything, I'm reading some classics, but I'm also kind of picking stuff at random. And before we talk about Scott Snyder, I do want to talk about Mindy Newell. Right. I don't know if you know her, but she, I didn't find this out until after I read the comic, but she was the first woman to be like a lead writer or a recurring writer or whatever the term is on Wonder Woman. And she also did Catwoman and Lois Lane. And I haven't read her Wonder Woman story yet, but I read her Lois Lane story, which is a 2-issue thing, but they're like double-sized issues, so it's really like 4 chapters.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. Like, Superman's not even in it. It's her doing like investigative journalism and like, trying to find missing kids. And it's basically her and Inspector Henderson. And it's got a very Law and Order vibe. And it was fantastic. And I was like, wow, let me see if this was a fluke. So I read her Catwoman story, which is a 4-issue or 5-issue thing about Catwoman's origin. And I haven't read Batman Year One, but I saw it.
Right.
And I saw the movie version.
Yeah.
and it ties into that.
Right. Right.
Like at one point, Batman shows up with his scar, Bruce Wayne in disguise, and I was like, oh, that's like from year one. And then later I read it, and it was like, oh no, that was the moment from year one.
Yeah, yeah. Your
Oh,
voice,
okay.
your voice is sounding like a robot now.
Ah, shoot.
Yeah.
Well, it's definitely my wire then, because I do have a direct connection to the computer, so
Oh,
that's unfortunate. But we'll deal with it as it comes up. I gotta figure something out.
yeah. So can you hear me now?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
good, good. All right. So the history behind uh Scott Snyder's Batman, in terms of like what was going on with DC at the time, this was part of the new DC 52,
yeah. I
where
don't know what that is. What is that?
so you know about Flashpoint. I mean,
Yeah,
it wasn't an
it's
episode.
season three.
It was an episode of season 3, and they made Flashpoint Paradox for the animated movie, which is basically as close an adaptation of the actual comic book as you'll probably get in any other medium other than the comic book, where Flash went back in time to stop Thawne from killing his mom, but what happens? He completely changes the future, and Superman is like a weakling. Aquaman and Wonder Woman are at war with each other with their varying nations. Bruce Wayne died, and Thomas Wayne became Batman. Whole world is upside down. Dog and cats living together. The whole works, right? So once Flash realized, oh, shit is not what it seems, and the thing is, he wakes up to a timeline where he doesn't have his powers. So he goes to the one person who he thinks can help him, which is Batman, not knowing that the Batman is Thomas Wayne this time. And he called him Bruce. And then Thomas Wayne was like, "Why did you call me Bruce?" And
Why did you say that name?
and then he says, "Well, where I'm from, Bruce is Batman." And Thomas is like, "He survived. Oh my god!" And he decides to help him by recreating the events that turned him into Flash and put him in like this electric chair and have like a thunderstorm hit him, and at first he seemed charred up, and then all of a sudden like his whole body's healed and he has his powers again, and then goes after Thawne, fight, 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 then goes back in time and stop Thawne from doing it, and then timeline reboots again, but for a third time. It actually isn't the same timeline before he left. It looks the same, but it's not the same.
And that's the new 52 timeline?
Then that's the new 52.
Cool.
And what basically...
Always rebooting.
Yeah, well, basically this was the biggest reboot since Crisis on Infinite Earths, where DC figured, hey, we have too much history, let's reboot the whole thing, start from zero, and recreate new characters, and the old characters start from issue 1, and new readers can come in. And for the most part, it was successful at first, but the problem is they didn't fully commit, because the things that were working prior to the reboot, they didn't want to completely reboot. So Batman was one of them, and Green Lantern was another, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the problem is, in the New 52, their history of superheroes is 5 years. They basically compress all those times, all those years and decades into 5 years. So what didn't work out is, like, you're telling me Justice League only existed for 5 years, and prior to 5 years, that 5 years, Batman was just a legend. But since the beginning, from Batman being discovered, it's just been 5 years, and in that time he has 3 Robins. So
Tim Drake was Robin for like a week.
Right, right? And so basically what Scott Snyder did was ignored it. He was like, "Listen, I'm not following your edict. I'm just gonna do my own thing," right?
And that's kind of the way to do it. Like, you can have continuity here and there, and that's cool.
Yeah.
But like, if you're sacrificing the story you want to tell so that you can tie it into 18 other books,
Yeah.
then you're not doing it right.
Right. So basically, a lot of comic books in the New 52, they kind of failed after like 6 issues or so. They got canceled. Some got writers got replaced. It was like a whole mess up. But the thing that stuck, what at least one, I think one of the writers that stuck was Scott Snyder on his Batman, and he was able to do a whole 50 issue run of Batman before he left that
Is it
title.
52 issues?
Well, I think most of these they wanted to go to 52, but he was like, "Nah, screw that. I'm going to 50." And um, it might be 52 if you count like the zero issues. Like I think they had a special zero issue and I think a villain issue or some shit like that. I don't remember.
In the app, we're just like kind of scrolling through. One
Yeah.
of them was like 20 something point
Right, that was
something.
when I think Forever Evil storyline was going on or something like that. So maybe that counts as 52. Who knows?
Oh,
But
we'll get there when we get there.
his run was one amazing run, and then we'll get to this storyline later. But he did his version of Year One, which was Year Zero, which was Batman Begins, and a lot of the elements he introduced in his run made it into the Gotham TV show.
Michael Chiklis.
Yeah, and Mike Chiklis. Oh yeah. He was Harvey Bullock.
No, no,
No, no.
that was
Oh, he
Donald
was.
Logue. He plays like the new captain who shows
Yes,
up in
yes,
like
yes.
season 3 or 4 or
Yeah,
something. I don't know.
yeah.
I didn't really watch the show, but
I
I
got up.
visited the set once.
I got up. Oh really? I,
Yeah.
I got up to season. I actually got up to the final season, if I'm not. No, season 4. I got up to season 4. Which was actually the beginnings of the Court of Owls storyline, actually,
Ooh.
which we're about to talk about.
Yeah, it's fun. Like, I mean, I know about Court of Owls from having written Screen Rant stories
Yeah.
about whether or not that's going to be a next Batman video game.
Mm,
And I know that they're like a secret society in Gotham, but beyond that, I really don't know
yeah.
anything. And I was so like, I didn't know anything about what this story was going into it. When you said this is what we're reading, I was just like, all right, I trust you.
Yeah.
So that's what. So and then like immediately, I was like, oh, this is Court of Owls. Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So basically, the entire Court of Owls story is 12 issues. This is like just the first half, like the sort of opening shot of the saga. But like I said, we're taking it how it was released because the first arc was called Court of Owls, and the second arc was called Night of Owls of the Owls or something like that. But really put together, it's like just one gigantic story. So we are on the first 6 issues, written by Scott Snyder, drawn by Greg Capullo, who draws, I think, every issue of Scott Snyder's Batman run. If I'm not mistaken, I might be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he got his start. Well, one of his major comic books that he worked on that really put him on the map was Spawn. I think he was one of the top writers right after Todd McFarlane stopped writing for it, drawing for it, where he put his stamp on that. But yeah, Greg Capullo, his art is dope, man. I love his art. It's amazing. Um,
Yeah, I really like the way Batman looks in particular. It's like a mix of like the Arkham video game style and like the movies, but he's got the same eyes.
right.
It's really interesting going from a lot of the comics that I've been reading
Mm-hmm.
lately are from the 80s,
Yeah.
and seeing how in that Batman is always blue, but
Mm-hmm.
you're not sure if it's like his suit is blue or if it's the way in comic book stuff that is black is drawn as blue, like
Yeah.
everyone's got blue hair.
Yeah. It was one of those things back in the days where certain inks and certain colors couldn't make it to print, so they had to like substitute other colors. But
Mhm.
you know, technology now has increased where everything can be representative of what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
And I mean, I like that style in the 80s stuff, but
yeah.
I like it here too.
So, as a noob to Batman, reading these first 6 issues, were you able to just like pick it up right from jump
Yeah.
and follow along with everything?
There's a few things that I'm gonna need to ask you about that I didn't know. Like, I don't know who Damian Wayne is. I assume that he's his son.
His son, yes.
Him and Catwoman.
Well,
Yeah.
have you been? No, not Catwoman. Actually, have you?
Talia?
Yes, Talia al Ghul. Have you been watching any of the DC animated movie? You have DC Universe. It should be all on there.
I've seen a couple. I haven't like dove in on the movies because I've been watching the different shows, the
Right.
older shows.
Right.
Um, but I watched a bunch of actually before the outbreak pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching a lot of Batman the Animated Series with my dad.
Mm-hmm.
We were because he's a '60s Batman guy,
Right. Right.
and like I grew up watching the animated series, but didn't really remember like
Right.
any of it to be
You're
honest.
talking about one with Kevin Conroy, Mark Hamill, and all
Yeah,
those people. Okay.
yeah.
Right.
And so like I kind of looked up some Screen Rant lists of like best episodes
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we watched a bunch of that. But that's kind of before what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but no, I haven't seen any of those movies.
Well,
I don't think.
because pretty much all the movies that came after Flashpoint Paradox were it's like the same universe. They kind of reference each other
Oh yeah,
a little
wait,
bit.
what's the producer's name?
Bruce Tim, was it?
No, it's a black guy.
Uh,
I mean, I don't know if Bruce Timm is black, but
Not.
uh, shoot, I met him at Comic Con for Reign of the Supermen,
It's not Kevin something, is it? No.
and it was like they called it like the his last name verse,
Right. Right.
the DC animated movies, and he was talking about doing all of those movies and was being like they were all in continuity, like his version. He's like, I'm happy to have my own little um, DC universe. It's like a fraction of the size of the Arrowverse, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
fraction of the size of the DCEU. But like, I'm
Yeah.
proud of my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said the only, I took a break from it to do the Adam West movies,
Okay.
which I adored,
Mm-hmm.
but I can't remember his name. It's like James something,
Uh,
but but
yeah.
whatever,
Yeah. So basically, all the movies take place in the same continuity, and one of them was let me see, what was it? Where it kind of adapted the story of Batman and Son. I don't know if it was called Batman and Son. It might have been called a different name. um, or it might have been called Batman and Son. Let me double check. Actually, Son of Batman, the movie was called. Came
Okay.
out in 2014, and it almost closely resembled the story which Grant Morrison wrote. So Grant Morrison reintroduced Son of Batman, where I think it was in the 70s or something like that, where they wanted to actually introduce the Son of Batman, but it just like they kind of retconned it. But he reintroduced it and tied it into a old story called shit demon, some son of the demon or something like that, where it had Batman and Talia kind of coming together and making love, blah blah blah, and that was the conception of Damian Wayne. And basically, he didn't know she was pregnant, and she gave birth to Damian and raised him as an assassin, and basically came to Batman and says, "Here's your son, teach him some discipline," and then left and dipped off.
Deadbeat mom.
And then basically he had to raise. It was a kind of well, Damien
And
stuff.
Batman's such a shitty dad that he's like, want to be Robin?
Well, actually, he wanted him to stop wanting to kill people.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because he trained as an assassin, and he demanded to tag along with his dad, and he kept having to hold him back, right? Because he's like
You
ready to just
killing.
murder someone. Um, but yeah, so Damon was introduced in that storyline.
Like it's cool. Like for me, not knowing who he is,
Yeah.
I kind of assume that even if you're starting with an issue one,
Mm-hmm.
that there's just like decades of continuity here and there, even in a reboot.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah.
you just like, you just got to go with it.
Yeah.
Like if you feel truly lost, then you ask someone who knows.
Mhm.
I'll send you a text message and be like, who's that?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I actually took a screen grab when I was reading it, and because in issue like 5 or maybe 6,
Mm-hmm.
they take pictures of all the different Bat family people,
Right.
and like there's this one black dude, and I was like, who's
Oh,
that?
I think it was Batwing. also from Grant Morrison's run, which you can collect. I don't think the third omnibus is out yet, but he had a whole run too as well, where he introduced Damian, made him the new Robin. Uh, then he killed Batman in the Final Crisis storyline and had uh, uh, Dick Grayson, become the new Batman, and him and Damian became Batman and Robin, which is like the second volume of his run. And then Batman came back, and then they became
That must have been so awkward.
and then Batman Incorporated was created, where he made a bunch of different people from different countries, like Batman a little bit, and Batman was one of them, which was the son of Lucius Fox.
And that was the guy
Yeah,
they showed.
yeah.
The
So
one black guy in Gotham,
uh,
Billy D. Williams.
yeah, so the third book would be Batman Incorporated. So it's like a trilogy that Grant Morrison did. So right after Grant Morrison finished with his sort of run of Batman, that's when Scott Snyder jumped in and took the baton and said, "All right, my turn. Let's go."
Right.
Yeah. So then, basically, for you, you didn't really have any issues kind of jumping on.
No, because it
And picking
definitely
it up.
it starts out like issue one has the narration that you immediately understand.
Yeah.
Even before you know who it is, you assume that it's Batman.
Now, do you hear Kevin Conroy's voice when you read Batman?
I was going. I was thinking about that during issue one. I was like, what voice should I use? Some of it I read out loud. Some of it I read, as Kevin Conroy. Some of it I read as Adam West.
Really?
Um, and I didn't read any as Ben Affleck. Sorry, but I definitely I've gone back and forth here and there, and usually fluctuating between West and Conroy.
Right.
I like their very distinct ways of speaking. I really like, even though it can be considered corny, West's version, I do really like it.
Right.
Like, I like the way he doesn't change his voice, but he changes his speech pattern as Batman, and I think that's actually really clever.
Right.
It's every other version of Batman, like they have like Ben Affleck has the robot voice, and Christian Bale has Christian Bale voice. But I fluctuate between Conroy and West.
Yeah. So, basically, what the story, to give an overarching idea of what the story is about, Batman, and I think what was so awesome about this story is like Batman. It begins with Batman kind of talking about Gotham and almost giving you that picture that Batman and Gotham are one. Like, he knows Gotham in the back of his hand. Like, he just knows every nook and cranny. He knows the history. And one of the things that this story kind of does too is sell the fact that the Waynes have been a part of Gotham since, I think, its creation. Like, it dates back to the 1800s, basically, where Batman is part of old money. And I think when the comic book reminds you that it's old money, it's always fascinating to me. Like, there's a history behind Gotham, behind the Waynes, really, like how the Waynes are super important. But this guy who is essentially like a demon when it comes to other people looking at from the outside, this Batman, this dark figure, is part of this rich legacy, and emphasis on rich, of a family that has been synonymous with the Gotham for hundreds of years, right? And that's the Wayne family, and this basically, I think Scott approached this, because I guess no other writers have done it. They always pretty much played it that Batman knows Gotham, and he's always known how to approach certain villains and where to go to get certain information. But this is a story that's dealing with something that Batman didn't know existed, something that was hidden from him his long period of Batman, and not just 5 years, because Scott Snyder said, "Screw that, I'm not doing that." The history of they've known about the Court of Owls. It's been in nursery rhymes for centuries. But they didn't know it was actually real. And Batman is surprised to find out. It's something that stomps him, and that hasn't stomped him since maybe Bane came on the scene and just snapped him in half. Um, that was like, I think the last. I mean, not to say I've been reading Batman comics for a long time, but like you kind of feel the energy of something surprising happening to Batman, even if you're not reading the comics. One of them was Batman's bat being broken. You just, if you're not reading comics, it's just you sense the energy. It's like
I saw it in the movie.
something happened to Batman. What's happening? Huh? Oh, his back got broken. Who did it? Oh, Bane. And it's just like it's one of those things that just get etched in your brain even if you're not reading comics. And Court of Owls was another thing that when that event happened, people were like paying attention now to Batman. So basically, this old organization that basically they run Gotham, but sort of like on the underground. Gotham is theirs, not Batman. They allowed Batman to have his fun, do his thing. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead, do your thing. Be the vigilante. Be the Dark Knight, right?
Yeah, I'm really interested in like the whole idea of how that plays out because we've seen a lot of secret societies
Yeah,
in fiction,
yeah,
and sometimes they're good, and I mean they're never like good,
yeah,
but like sometimes they are of a high quality,
yeah.
and sometimes they are like super corny, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
they defeat him, and then next week it's just like, all right, on to Two Face or whatever.
Yeah,
But here, I really like how it started with him kind of showing that his typical rogues gallery are not the threat that they
yeah.
are. This is not going to be a kind of story where it's like, oh, his rogues gallery is going to offer a threat
Mm-hmm.
because they are all locked up basically, and when they get unlocked, he just knocks them out
Knocked
and
him
locks
out.
them back up.
Throw
And
him
it
back.
kind of it tricks you a little bit, James Bond pre-credit sequence
Yeah,
of
yeah.
kind of being like, oh, he's fighting with Joker. What's going on here? And it's like, nah, just kidding. It's just
Dick Grayson.
like, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then when they show up, I thought the nursery rhyme thing was a little tiny bit corny, but we'll see how it plays out.
Right, right.
Um, but I do really like the kind of the implication that the fact that they have not seen him as a nuisance until now
Yeah.
is kind of something that is an indictment of Batman,
Mm-hmm.
who is always, beating the crap out of, poor people.
Yeah. Which is interesting because the Batman didn't bother them, but Bruce Wayne bothers them now because Bruce basically has an initiative to sort of, which is strange, right? Usually you get those initiatives from villains, right? Like Lex Luthor, I'm going to rebuild the metropolis and have it some new skyrise and stuff like that. But it's Bruce Wayne that's kind of pushing for this new Gotham sort of like, and it's like it's interesting to see that speech coming from the protagonist of the story, but because of what he wants to do with Gotham, the Court of Owls are like, hold on there. You could beat up all the villains you want, but the moment you touch our city, we're sending Talon after you. So they basically are sending their top guy, which is Talon, and Talon pretty much attacks Bruce, damn near kills him.
And that poor mayoral candidate, Lincoln.
Lincoln
What's
March.
his name? Thomas Lincoln?
Lincoln March.
Who's Thomas Lincoln? Why did that name pop into my head?
I don't know.
That someone? I don't know. Maybe I think of Thomas Lennon, the actor.
Probably.
Whatever. But yeah, Lincoln March, he seems fine, although I would not be surprised to see him be part of the conspiracy moving forward.
Probably.
Like, oh, make it look good, guys. Oh, you made it look really good.
Yeah. So they, Talon tried to assassinate Bruce Wayne. He was in Batman at the time. He was meeting with Lincoln March about investment stuff and he's mayor. He's running for mayor, right?
He's running for mayor.
Yeah, mayoral stuff and all that stuff. And then Talon attacks him, but Alan Wayne, who created one of the buildings that they visited, his son, I guess, created one of the gargoyles that Batman is always perching on. Created another one that's like hidden, and that saved him pretty much.
Yeah, which the art doesn't really articulate how he survives.
Yeah,
So
it's
that was kind of like a, oh, that's a
because in
classic
reality he would.
Batman Mary Sue kind of thing, you
Yeah, I
know?
think in reality he would have died no matter which gargoyle he grabbed. But they'd kind of like, let's just play with the imagination here and say
Yeah.
he survived with one of the gargoyles.
You just kind of have to accept that Batman is a Mary Sue.
Yeah,
Like even if I think that term is so lame,
yeah, it is.
but but if it can be applied to anybody and like it gets applied, it always gets applied to female characters because comic book nerd, stereotype people
Yeah,
don't like quote unquote strong female characters. But like if it applies to anybody, it
yeah,
applies to Batman.
yeah, yeah.
Which,
Uh,
like, if you can roll with that, like that he is just that prepared,
mm-hmm.
then like fine, let's have some fun with that.
Yeah, yep. So I mean, I watched a video. It's called DC versus Marvel. It was like a LA Bible thing or LAD Bible, YouTube channel, where they just have like different kind of videos, and one of the video series they have is a versus series, and like they would have flat earthers versus what's regular people.
Yeah,
And one of them was Marvel versus DC, where they have like two. It's basically, they have regular random people have a conversation with each other, and one of the uh, videos that had the two people, one of them said, "Listen, Batman could beat anyone in Marvel with prep time," because that was always the kind of thing with Batman. Anybody's always like, Batman can beat anyone with prep time. He can beat Superman with prep time. He can beat Wonder Woman with prep time, and anybody over at Marvel with prep time, right? So I guess going off of that, but he didn't have.
well, I mean that plays into it because like it's like Star Trek 2,
Mm-hmm.
where the whole premise of Star Trek is that by the end of the episode, Kirk has found a way out,
Right.
no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And Star Trek 2 is like, hey, here's looks like you can't get. There's no easy way out of this one. Spock's gonna have to die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Spoiler. But then you can save him in the sequel because you're Kirk. But you know, I think the most interesting Batman stories, all again with my limited experience, are you know, what if you can't do whatever it is you set out to do?
Right.
What if you can't beat this guy? What if Bane breaks your back?
Mm-hmm.
What if the Joker dies at the end of Arkham City?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I don't think qualifies as a spoiler anymore. But what if you can't? What if this Talon guy is blocking every single move you throw at him
Mm-hmm.
and throws you out of a window, and you barely survive with your life, and then he kills his way out of an ambulance
Right.
somehow unscathed? And I think we see the response to that, even bypassing the murder investigation, but
Mm-hmm.
kind of skipping that for a second.
Right.
Um, the way he reacts is by going after whoever he's going after at the start of issue 2,
Mm-hmm.
who are like completely irrelevant to the story, but almost him being like proving to himself that, and unless they wind up being relevant later, it's him proving to himself that he is not weak.
Right.
It's kind of like, oh, this guy knocked me out, so I need to take my frustrations out on some low-level criminal or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which he should be doing anyway, but not to satisfy his own ego.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe I'm just always looking for a reason to indict Batman because you know how I feel about him.
Yeah.
But like, I think that Batman writers kind of know that,
Mm-hmm.
like that he is just as psychotic as the people he puts away, blah 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 blah. That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this plays with that because, like we said before, um, this is a story where Bruce Wayne earns the ire of the court,
Yeah.
but they're also targeting Batman, which we're not. I don't think we're 100% sure why right now, are we?
Well, no, not at this moment. I guess
Not
going.
spoiling
Yeah.
from the back.
Like I won't, because like I said, I've gone through some of these issues before, but at this point, no, we don't. But well, actually, I guess we sort of do, because Batman, during his investigation, and and we're coming up to this part where I wanted to bring this up. The Legend of the 13th Floor.
Mm.
I myself wasn't aware that this was a real legend. Like
Oh yeah. You
people,
go any office building in New York City.
there's
There's never a 13th floor.
yeah, right. I and the thing is, there was a movie called 13th Floor, but I was like, I actually didn't watch it. And then I read this, and I was like, oh wait, that's a real thing. Holy shit.
Hmm.
Um, so Batman basically knows that even though there's no 13th floor, this I don't know if it's true. If you could tell me if it's true, that even though there's no 13th floor, they make a space, I guess, still big enough for a man to hide in. I don't know if
Yeah,
they
I don't know
actually
if
do that.
that's true. We'll have to leave that for chat if anyone's watching or the comments on
Yeah,
YouTube to put that out to us.
yeah. So, but in for the purposes of the story, Batman says, well, at least Alan Wayne did that, where he left the space to keep the evil. So basically, he
And that's
went.
where they built their lair.
Yeah, so he went there and he found all the layers of the Court of Owls. So I guess in that essence, that Batman, there may be more to it. That maybe they know who he's Bruce Wayne. Actually, I think they might know that he's Bruce Wayne based on how
Or,
this first six issue ends. They kind of like give the indication that, yeah, we know who you are, pal.
mm.
Um,
but yeah, I think it's either like that, like
yeah,
what you said, the fact that he found their base is kind of like, okay, now we got to take him out,
yeah,
or just the fact that he um, is investigating, he from an outsider's point of view, he's kind of made it his point
hmm,
to protect Bruce Wayne.
right,
So
right,
they're like, well, if our for a guy to kill Bruce Wayne, we need to get rid of Batman first.
yeah,
So it's probably a little bit of both,
yeah.
plus maybe other stuff that I don't know about yet.
So basically, they capture him. He's been missing for by the time he hit to issue 5.
Week, right? Or,
They've
or more?
yeah, I think they said 8 days. Well, a week, I guess. um,
Enough time for him to kind of be a little deranged.
right. And then speaking to your kind of like issue with Batman, where he's like never basically he is Punisher without the killing. I
Mm-hmm.
think was your kind of beef with the character.
Which makes him even worse.
Right? So I think this is sort of the beginning, because I think this is one of the things that Scott Snyder plays with, and he plays it with it further in some of the storylines. You're starting to see the cracks here, and basically he's been there for damn near a week. I guess no food, no sleep, so he's like deranged now, and he's hallucinating things, and I mean it's still a weird place that he's in. That's real. That's there's a big ass owl, and I think they're weird portraits around, but because of his psychosis at the time, he just elevates to 11, and he's hallucinating things until Talon returns, and the Court of Owl actually shows up, and basically they sentence him to death, and Talon is like straight beating this guy up. But a testament to what Bruce has done with his body to become Batman, where he's the peak of physical condition. He's like, all right, I got one more ounce of fight left in me. I'm gonna take you out. And of course, he, an example of how he knows Gotham. He says, "Well, I've tasted the fountain. That means it's close to this river." And
Which is like so ridiculous.
yeah, I know, right?
But like, again, you gotta go with it.
Right.
I mean, you know what it's like.
I think they make it believable because of how long Batman has been in Gotham. Like, you could believe that somehow this guy, who's been in probably every nook and cranny of Batman fighting crime, could, sure, he's gotten hit in a few rivers or two. He's swallowed too. It's like,
It's
oh,
a
yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. But it's also like Adam West, where in like the joke
Yeah.
in the Riddler episodes of that show was that they do a riddle,
Mm-hmm.
and it would be a riddle with like no solution,
Right.
but Batman and Robin would bounce ideas off each other and come up with the correct answer through like no actual logic.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Like it would be just ridiculous leaps of faith and
Right.
nonsense logic that if you're a kid, you're like, wow, they're so smart. And if you're an adult with no sense of humor, you're like, this is dumb.
Yeah.
But if you get it, if you're willing to go with it, you're
Hmm.
like, awesome, let's go. And
Yeah.
this is like a dramatic version of that.
Right. Right.
And I think that's kind of one of the best things about Batman is that, like, if you're willing to go with it, there's so much storytelling
Hmm.
to be had. You just have to, you know, I feel like suspend your disbelief is a little bit of a reductive phrase, um, but to just go with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like he can taste that it's from the reservoir or the river or whatever.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference. It's like when someone says this isn't tap water or this is tap water, not from the filter. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you don't know. You don't know.
Yeah.
You're just saying that.
Right.
Um,
So,
but yeah, and his mental state I really like because it's such that he sees, the Talon looks like the Talon. He looks pretty much the same,
hmm.
I think. But the Court of Owls are like these, like they look like literal humanoid owls with
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
long, gross limbs.
Well, the thing
But
is, it might be, and this is not me spoiling anything because I don't remember. Like it might be being viewed through the lens of Batman, who's at this point nuts.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it is. But then that applies to Batman's view of himself,
Right. Right.
where when he starts fighting back, he becomes like a monster.
Monster. Yeah. Yeah.
Like the especially having the teeth be part of the cowl and
Yeah.
his jawline is like, at this point there's no difference between Bruce and Bats,
Yeah.
which I really like that kind of idea of, if the way he has this kind of obsession with his city, he's got to save the city. He kind of, you know, transmutes that to himself,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that is um, in a way the city itself is the only thing that's keeping him, if not sane,
Mm-hmm.
then in check.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. So basically, Batman, knowing, armed with the knowledge of where he is located, sort of like defeats the Talon. I don't know if he killed him. No,
He
he just
he
probably just knocked him out or something.
he knocks him out,
Yeah.
but then when the Court of Owls, actually show up properly
Yeah.
and they're shown to be, old people in masks.
Yeah.
Um, they're like,
Oh yeah.
oh, he'll get better, and it's like, yeah, but he lost,
Yeah.
and like that is a wound
Mm-hmm.
that's reduced his effectiveness.
Yep.
Like if the fact that Batman was able to beat him means that Batman will be able to beat him again,
Mm-hmm.
and we can't have that, so they presumably send him off to be executed, and the cliffhanger that issue 6 ends on is them awakening
Yeah. All
awakening
their talents.
the other Talons.
Yeah. Yeah. So that sets the stage for
and
night.
Batman drowning.
Yeah, that's basically sets the stage for the Night of Owls, which is the next
The next
arc, which again put together is one long story, but I guess separating him in
I didn't want to read 12 issues.
yeah, separating him in sort of the 6-issue arc was I guess both Scott and our idea of like really making it easier and simpler to digest.
Yeah, I mean, because I like, the serialized stuff, but, I was telling you before,
Mm-hmm.
One of the comics that I read on DC was Brainiac,
Right.
which is a 5-issue thing by some guy who's probably super famous, and I should remember his name, but I can't. And it was really good, and I liked it, but then it ends very much with a segue to to read more, read this
New
thing,
Krypton or
yeah,
something.
and it's like 50 issues
Yeah.
and like crosses over with other books, and the way DC Universe app kind of sets it up is that a lot of those stories don't. Some of them are like packed in together, kind of like, oh, you go from this book to this book to this book to this
Yeah.
book, but the New Krypton stuff was not packed in like that. So it would say read the next issue, which is like 2 months later.
Yeah.
And so I had to check online, and it was like, oh, I'm not reading all of these. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
New Krypton will have to wait for the movie.
Yeah. Funny thing though, there are some issues. I think in Knights of All and Death in the Family, two story arcs that wrote that kind of bring in other heroes. Like you got to go to their books, but not. But Scott designed his stories in a way that even though they're kind of crossing over with others, it doesn't affect. So basically, you can just read his Batman, and it kind of just like doesn't really. You didn't feel like you missed a beat. Basically, it's
Yeah.
just it's just if you read the other stories, it paints a picture of just how big the story is, so to speak. But yeah, yeah, like I said, that's why I kind of love his run. Well, what I've read so far. Um, but I guess stepping back to the Court of Owls. So then the question is, what do you? So you read the first 6 issues. You know, what do you think so far of his run? What do you think of his beginning?
Well,
Uh,
I like that this Bruce Wayne is sane enough to go, hey, how can I actually make a difference in Gotham City?
right.
If not for like maybe I do feel maybe I, Bruce Wayne, do feel like it might be time to actually improve things
Mm-hmm.
rather than try to bring my parents back from the dead by beating the crap out of, Joker and Two-Face
Mm-hmm.
and Riddler and whoever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and that, New Gotham thing. Is that what he actually called it, or did I just make that up?
Well, no, I don't think he called it New Gotham. Maybe he
But like,
did. Maybe he did. But it was the basically the image kind of sold that
yeah.
it's going to be a pretty new Gotham.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's like him actually doing something as a Wayne,
Mm-hmm.
because he's the way he says, Alan Wayne.
Alan Wayne. Yeah.
Uh, he says that he's the man who helped build the skyline,
Yeah. Yeah.
or you might even say he designed the skyline. But he says the gist of Gotham looks the way it does because of
Alan Wayne.
this Wayne,
Yeah.
and he's like kind of stepping up to the plate and being like, well, now I'm going to do my part to
Mm-hmm.
shape the skyline for the new generation.
Yep.
Because, it's like looking in New York City. Uh, Half these buildings could very easily be, not knocked down, but replaced
Mm-hmm.
with, more 21st century versions, like Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chicago burned down in a horrible fire or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I forget exactly what it is, and they rebuilt it with much more modern sensibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And New York, its Great Fire was like 300 years ago, so
Right.
it does not have alleys that you can walk through reasonably like you can in Chicago.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like it would be like if Bruce Wayne was a New Yorker and was like, "All right, this city needs some work. Let me pay with my billions and billions of dollars
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
to make this city livable in the 21st century in a way that it's just not right now."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would be super into that.
Mm-hmm.
And I bet you'd be super into that.
Yeah.
Even though our communities probably wouldn't be terribly affected because we don't have the skyscrapers, but still.
So the question is though, he's this new project that he's working on. I mean, he's always this kind of philanthropist, and is this just gonna benefit the 1%, or is it gonna benefit everyone else? Like with because you look at this place, this thing he's building, looks like it's gonna be expensive to rent, right? Like
Mm.
unless the investment he's getting is enough to sort of subsidize the rent being very low, like where poor people can afford to live in better facilities. I don't know, but
Yeah, I imagine this is something that probably just won't be addressed, kind
yeah,
of, in
yeah,
the story.
yeah,
But, at least the idea of, hey, it's like the big city, so whatever happens, it affects everyone who lives here.
right.
And like, granted, the office space in particular will only affect people with those kinds of jobs. They won't affect, the bus drivers
Mm-hmm.
and the sanitation workers so much. But, um, and there's also Alfred has kind of a throwaway line where he's like, "Yeah, but you didn't mention all the new bat bunkers that you're
Yep,
building
yep.
and all these things." And he's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, don't worry about it." So there's definitely he's not letting go of Batman anytime
Hmm.
soon.
Yeah, that was
But
also the cool thing I appreciated too, where it opens with sort of Batman creating this new technology where it can take all the facility, all the cool stuff of being in the cave everywhere with him, right? He didn't. Basically, he's like he has a portable cave with him everywhere he goes.
you got a little bit of that Iron Man tech.
Yeah, right. He doesn't have to go back to the cave to analyze a knife. You just blick, and it reports back to him.
Hmm.
Of course, Alfred is still there. I hear the animated show's voice every time I hear Alfred when I'm reading for Alfred. You know, that voice, whoever did the voice, I don't know who did the voice, but like I hear that voice in my head.
It was it was actually a pretty famous dude. I think it was Ephraim Zimbalist Jr.
What has he been in? Anything I've seen?
He's been around, but he's not terribly famous. But I think he's like an old TV guy.
I'm sure he is. I'm sure
I
he
think
is.
he's like a '60s and '70s like TV regular.
Yeah, yeah.
Before my time, so I couldn't say off the top of my head what he was in, but I feel like he's a super famous,
Mm-hmm.
relatively famous. He might have been something of a prestige name for
Right.
people looking through TV Guide. Like, oh, he's Alfred, and then they flip it on like, oh, it's a cartoon. Come on, because no matter how great your cartoon is, there is a large audience, especially of older viewers, who are just not gonna give
Yeah,
a damn if it's a cartoon.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Batman has some new tech. The cave stuff. They're building different cave bunkers or whatever.
Why is
Um,
there a dinosaur? I know you told me before, but why is there a
that's
dinosaur?
no, I don't think I've told, but that's been a mainstay for Batman. I think it was adapted from the animated series. Because there was a dinosaur thing in that, right? And I think once that show became famous and they start incorporating stuff from the show like Harley Quinn, I think that was one of the things they
No,
brought in.
they had it before then.
You sure?
Yeah, I read some '80s story that I could probably pull it up, but it's probably like a way back. It's probably like a golden age thing.
And let's see, dinosaur in
If I had to guess,
that cave.
I would say that's probably a golden age thing that just kind of stuck.
Batman's T Rex. History. It was a robot that Batman fought during an early adventure in Maury Wilson's Heart's theme park on Dinosaur Island. This theme park should be confused. I think it meant should not be confused with the better known Dinosaur Island. Originally, the mechanical dinosaur was stored along with the various other items kept as souvenirs from Batman's cases in place called the trophy room. Later on, the
Yeah,
dinosaur,
give us the publication history.
yeah, dinosaur became one of the. First appearance, Batman 35. That's June 1946. Well, okay.
I called it. Yeah,
Well,
that's way before Silver
yeah,
Age.
yeah. Well, I mean, the first time I saw it was the animated series, so.
I think the first time I saw it was. I mean, if I saw it in the animated series, I didn't remember it, but it was in Arkham City
Right.
or Arkham Origins, maybe. One of
Oh.
the Arkham games had stuff in the Batcave.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was definitely in one of the Arkham games. I don't remember if it was in Arkham Origins though. He
Okay.
might not have had it yet.
A mechanical T-Rex first appeared on Batman's story in Batman 10 years prior to the one from Dinosaur Island. Whatever.
No, that's funny.
um,
But there's also like the giant coin, and they show some other stuff. And I love it when they just show the Batcave
yeah.
because it's just like Easter Egg City.
Yeah.
And even if they're not Easter eggs, just like cool stuff, like different versions of the Batmobile show up, different
Mhm.
suits,
Mhm.
Robin suits. And I love that stuff. I sometimes roll my eyes at Easter eggs, even when I like them,
Yeah.
because I'm just like, it's fan service. It's getting distracting. Like when Finn is going through stuff and he pulls out the remote and stops on it for like too long, and it's like, hey, it's the remote from the first Star Wars movie.
Oh,
That
right,
throws
yeah.
it away.
Yeah.
Like, stop it, you, stop it. Too much. But when they have something like the Batcave,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, all right, let's do it. It's like when you go to a Q lab in a James Bond movie. It's
Yeah,
like just show me everything.
yeah. Is Batman is pretty much James Bond, like a dark James Bond.
And
It's always been. It's created. Well, Batman came first, right? I think Batman
oh
was in
yeah,
the
right.
30s,
Mm-hmm.
and James Bond, the first publication was what 60s or
50s,
50s, 50s, yeah.
like 50. I would just be guessing, but I would say 56.
But they almost have the same sort of sensibilities when it comes to their women, their gadgets. It's just
Yeah,
one's more broody.
yeah, and Bruce's high society proclivities are a cover,
Yeah,
whereas with Bond, you feel like he's. It depends on the actor,
yeah.
but
Because
he's.
I think Daniel Craig plays it as if he doesn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah, Craig
Um,
and Connery are a little more Batman-y
yeah,
than Roger Moore and Brosnan.
yeah. So yeah, Roger Moore and Brosnan were more of that. George Lazenby was well. He never really got a chance to show what kind of Bond he
Yeah,
was.
he was definitely the one who, more than anybody,
Hmm.
was a recast
Yeah,
of the actor from before.
yeah,
Like
and
we couldn't afford the other guys, and
yeah. And then what would you say? Timothy Dalton would be like a mix of the dark and the light,
um,
or
he was a lot more. He was a lot closer to the literary version,
okay,
where I feel like he leaned very hard into both sides.
yeah, yeah,
Um, in whereas with Brosnan and Moore, you feel like they favor one side more than the other,
hmm,
and with Craig and Connery, they favor one side more than the other.
yeah,
I think that Timothy Dalton leaned hard into both sides, and when he committed to one,
hmm,
that was where he was. Like the Living Daylights is a lot more. He's a lot more dapper, and
hmm,
in License to Kill, he goes ape shit.
yeah.
I love, I love that movie so much.
So yeah, so I guess Batman would be the dark side of Bond, where he doesn't really like high society and pretends. But when he's most comfortable when he's perched on top of a skyscraper, ready to pounce on some fool.
Hmm. Yeah, and I feel like that's a big part of Alfred's always trying to push him more towards
The light,
being a Wayne.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and I feel like there's almost like a behind the scenes conversation, like a deleted scene between Bruce and Alfred, where he's like, okay, New Gotham, okay, look at all these new buildings. He's like, yeah, but you've got a whole floor dedicated to bat bunkers. He's
yeah,
like, okay, come on, a little something for me, a little something for
yeah.
Bruce. All
um,
right, fine.
and one of the other things I like about reading Scott Snyder's Batman is he manages to. I guess one of the things that help the reader if you're the first time to the comic book, but of Batman, whether it's through the cartoons, whether it's through Arkham, the Arkham games, he managed to put every single, like, incorporate every single element and to make it comfortable. Like, you have Bullock in there, where I mean, this is before a Gotham show, but I'm sure you've seen Bullock in the animated series. And was Bullock in any of the Arkham games? I don't remember.
He, at least his voice is in Arkham Origins.
Probably, yeah.
I
Because I
don't
don't
remember
remember
if
him
he actually
in
has a
any of the games.
physical appearance.
But yeah, Bullock was in there from the show. His gadgets feel like something that you've probably seen in some cartoon or maybe a movie. But yeah, it makes you feel familiar even if you've never read a Batman comic, and I think that he manages to do that. And the mere fact that he gets the familiar villains out of the way in the cold open, and sort of begins a new story where it's like brand new for old readers and new readers, where it's like a new story being told. It was a smart idea to sort of like begin the story where you can actually literally jump on. It's a jumping on point. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
by the time this issue 50, we get around to issue 50, it'll be like a whole book. Like a bookend where it's like, yeah, you can start from this and end at this, and you get a whole Batman story. Then you never have to read a Batman book again. But I'm sure DC doesn't want to hear that.
Yeah. And like I trust that there will be, if there's any kind of old continuity, or like if Damian Wayne has anything important to do,
Right.
there will be, someone will be like, hey, that's Damian Wayne. This is his story in like, 30
Yeah, yeah.
seconds or less to kind of
Yeah.
get me up to speed. But by issue 50, any continuity that they'll need to incorporate will have already been in the story thus far.
Yeah.
So, that's just narrative build.
Yeah.
That's just narrative build, baby. That's how you do it.
Yep.
So I'm in for the long haul.
All right, so that was our first PG comic show. We dealt with the first 6 issues, and I loved it. I assume you loved the first 6 issues.
I had a great time. Good start.
Good start to a Scott Snyder saga. So join us next week as we go to. I don't think it's the next 6. I think it goes just 6 to 11. I'm not sure if in my omnibus where I'm reading it, it has the side stories with I think Nightwing and Robin. But if I don't know how it's gonna look on the DC app, if it just goes, does it show any other issues like?
The app shows. I can bring it up right now.
Because if it doesn't, I think we'll just read.
I mean, if any like spin-off issues are part of it, you can tell me what they are, and I can add them to my.
Well, it might not even be part of the omnibus, so it wouldn't even matter. Hold on, let me check. So, table of content. Yeah, it's not a part of it, so we could skip it. So it's basically we can read issue 7 to 11, which I think it's the 7 to 11.
Well, this is interesting. Okay, mine
7 to 12.
goes.
Go ahead.
Mine goes 7, 8, 9. Batman Annual 2012.
I have that.
Featuring the torment of Mr. Freeze.
So wait, do you have 11?
And then 10, 11, 12, 0, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Actually, I don't have annual 2012. Well, no, I do, but it comes after Batman 12. It's interesting.
Yeah. For me, Batman 12 is the next one after that is Batman 0.
Yeah, Batman 0 is after as well.
Then the next weird thing is after 22 is Batman's 0 year director's cut.
It's just
which might be some kind of thing from 21 because the cover looks the same.
Yeah. Batman. I have 2 Batman Zeros here, where it says before the new 52, bright new yesterday, and then tomorrow. And I think 13 is where year 0 starts, if I'm not mistaken.
See, comic books are so stupid. Why? Although maybe you just read at least on this, you just read them in order and it'll play out the way it plays out.
Yeah.
23.1, 23.2. Come on, stop it.
Yeah, well, that was freaking DC when they were doing their events that forced the other writers to kind of conform to what the event was going on.
At least the covers are cool because it's like Batman, but the logo that they're using for these Batman stories, but then Riddler #1 written on top of it, Penguin #1 written on top of it. So that's clever, I guess.
Yeah, so I
give him a pass.
I guess we'll go to from issue 7 to 11 because I think 11 is where the story ends. 11, I think, is the last issue of. Wait. No. It's actually 10.
Well, it's 11. The cover says the epic finale of the Court of Owls.
Yeah, so. Which one? For 11?
11.
Yeah, so yeah, we'll read up to 11.
Okay, including Batman Annual #1.
Yeah, we'll just read up to 11. I don't know if Annual #1 is part of it here.
I mean, if it's not part of the actual story, it can be a little sidebar at some point.
Yeah, so we'll 7 to 11. We'll
They do
continue.
have They do have little owls on the cover, so at least there'll be a background element
Yeah,
at the very least.
yeah, yeah. That's good. Or could we
Yeah.
just read to 12? Because I want to see where Death in the Family starts. Oh, Death in the Family starts at 13. So
And we
let's
should
just
probably
read to 12. Let's read to 12.
yeah.
Yeah, because 13 is where Death in the Family starts. Death of the Family, actually. Death in the Family is where
Jason Todd, right?
Jason Todd dies.
R.I.P.
So
Oh, spoiler!
yeah, that's like how many years ago? And he's back.
I saw that movie.
And he's
Under
back
the Red
in
Hood.
Red. Yeah.
I liked that movie a lot,
Yeah, it
actually.
was a good movie. It was a good comic book too. It was pretty good. So yeah. Oh, this is my omnibus.
Woo!
Huge. It's a weapon.
It's a lot.
um,
See, like, part of me wants to would love to invest, but it's like those Punisher comics take up so much space on my shelf already. I don't want, and it's
and listen, don't start because it's addicting. Because once you get something, you're like, oh man, I need to collect the other thing, and then it's like I have like a bunch of X-Men right here that goes from Chris Claremont's beginning all the way up to I want to see Avengers versus X-Men. That's
and
when I
like
kind
just
of
in terms of space, it's
yeah.
like that much space versus this much space. I'm good with this.
Yeah, yes. I mean, it would be cool if you got like a Marvel app too, to kind of like so you can do
If
Marvel stuff. But you know, for now we can.
when the podcast gets there, I'll invest.
You know, we'll focus on some DC stuff here. So, all right. So yeah, that just brings us to the end, and stay tuned for the next episode where we'll deal with the second half of the Court of Owls storyline. So you can find me at if you're watching here on Twitch, if you're watching on YouTube, you can find us at twitch.tv/popculturegalaxy. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can find me at Twitter at Marky Tundra and on Instagram at popculturegalaxy. Where can they reach you at?
You can read my work at screenrant.com. You can catch me streaming at the Pop Culture Galaxy. I haven't been streaming enough the past couple days. I've been kind of swamped with work, and I've got more coming up the next few days. But I will be back.
Right.
And you can catch me on Twitter at my name, Zach Wojner.
Nice. All right, so that will bring us to the end. And until next time, folks, I want to say peace.
Indeed.